This is Delhi. Please stand by for the next broadcast. This is All India Radio. Tonight in the National Programme of Features, we bring you a feature titled Divine Maestro. The radio feature takes the listeners through the life and times of the Carnatic music legend M.S. Subbulakshmi. She was the very first musician to receive India's highest civilian honour, Bharat Ratna.
Emma Sama is 2-3 steps ahead of music with divinity, what you call Devamsham. She had that Devamsham.
It's impossible to de-divinize MS really.
She occupies a place very similar to Saraswati Devi. She is considered the god of classical music.
She is an avatar, incarnation of music.
She had a wonderful voice that was a gift from the heavens.
There have been many musicians in India acclaimed as prodigies, admired as geniuses, and hailed as pathfinders. But M.S. Subbulakshmi was adored as a saint, a goddess, a celestial being. She had to be steered through milling crowds, everyone trying to touch her feet, some intoning Lakshmi, Saraswati, Meenakshi, Kamakshi.
I am K.V. Prasad, Mridanga Vidwan. I have experienced many people responding to her spontaneously, suddenly seeing her and doing the Sashtanga Namaskaram wherever they see her. I always think that she had that magnetic power of divinity.
My name is Dr. Sriram Parshuram. I am an Indian classical musician. Classical music was never a typical mass kind of a thing. M.S. Samma was able to transcend some of those barriers of classical art. If you mention Carnatic music, M.S. Subbulakshmi will be at the top.
Film stars get the same adulation, but there is a difference. This was not star craze, but worship, as if they were in front of someone who cast a divine light, even when she was not singing. Blind and deaf Helen Keller touched her throat as she sang and said, "I hear the angels now." Conductor Zubin Mehta refused to perform on the same stage after her concert. "Nobody wants to hear anything else after MS," he said.
And God has gifted very high quality of the voice.
Carnatic violin maestro Professor V.V. Subramaniam.
There is one opera singer, a senior lady. She has listened many recordings of M.S. Subbulakshmi. Given the appreciation words like this kind of voice, nobody has got in, even in the opera.
K.V. Prasad, Mridangam accompanist with MS for 15 years.
She was always into music with the music. She got lost into her music.
India identifies musical pursuit with spiritual quest. M.S. Subbulakshmi followed their path of devotion to God and compassion for mankind. In temples, from the Himalayas to the tip of the Indian peninsula, the hymns recorded in her voice wake up the gods at dawn.
Seva Parashiva Suresha Krishanu Dharma Rakshambunatha Pavamana Dhanadhinatha Shri Venkatachalapate Tava Suprabhatam.
She sang the Suprabhatam. The last 70-80 years, it has ruled our hearts.
Musicologist Dr. Sriram Parshuram.
Her honesty and commitment to the Lord gets reflected in that. She felt that classical music is fine, okay. But the moment you extend it to a devotional idiom, the devotional albums have much farther reach than their classical album. That vision she had.
Mangala Shasana Parair Madacharya Purogamai Sarvaischa Bhuvai Racharyai Satkritaya Mangalam.
MS was the only South Indian musician to have conquered the North. Pandit Ravi Shankar said, "Her aura, beauty and persona captured the audience before she sang a single note. Her amazing voice had the tonal quality of a temple bell, resonating through the concert hall." The legendary vocalist Bade Ghulam Ali Khan called her the goddess of the perfect note, Subbulakshmi, Subbulakshmi. The Edinburgh Festival and the United Nations General Assembly heard Indian music for the first time when she performed there in 1963 and 1966, respectively. The San Francisco Chronicle called her concert a series of miracles and exclaimed, "Mrs. Subbulakshmi proved a master among masters. Like sleight of hand, she throws out embellishments almost too fast to hear." M.S. Subbulakshmi, popularly called M.S. or M.S. Amma, was born in Madurai in a modest home. M.S. was also called Kunjamma by those close to her. Kunjamma's stage debut at age 17 at the Madras Music Academy, the mecca of Carnatic music, astonished lay listeners and veterans. The purity of her Shruti Shuddham and Swarasthana Shuddham, her sweet, piercing voice, made the great Vernika Karaikudi Sambasiva Iyer exclaim, "Child, you carry the veena in your throat." Venerable lay wizard Dakshinamurthy Pillai had told her affectionately, "You have a golden voice, but you have something more, bhava, emotion."
Her bhava and bhakti in her music, you can't see to anybody's music.
Musicologist and performer Vidushi R. Vedavalli.
She's singing from her heart. She's not acting. Wherever she sings, that bhava should come, that bhakti will come. We have to learn from her how to use the voice.
Ghatam Maestro Vinayak Ram, who was named Vikku by MS.
Be it any language, she sings with clarity and perfection and gets absorbed in a singing.
Veteran Mridangam accompanist T.K. Murthy, whom MS fondly called Chittu.
Her music is pure, faultless and pristine. She sings as if in divine presence.
In 1936, she met the man who would take her out of the courtesan circuit and shape her into a saint. This was Tyagarajan Sadashivam, a firebrand freedom fighter. Marriage to Sadashivam introduced her to a wider world, says Gowri Narayan, grandniece of MS Subbulakshmi.
MS was admired by great celebrities across the world. She too must have been very greatly influenced by all these great icons. She sat up close to Mahatma Gandhi and sang. That she sat up close to Mahatma Gandhi and heard him speak. All these things, I think, MS internalized, and they became a part of her personality, the way she saw the world, the way she saw humanity. And so the music she made reflected all these feelings. As her vocal accompanist, 16, 17 years of her life, what I saw was a crusader in MS. Music was her satyagraha. It was her force of truth.
Sadashivam was convinced that his wife's unique voice had to be used to promote eternal values, to serve worthy causes, and for the welfare of the community. He channeled most of her earnings into great causes and charitable endowments.
She was an exceptionally good human being. That is probably her biggest quality.
Dr. Sriram Parashuram, veteran vocalist and violinist.
A very generous person. Her lakhs and lakhs of income, of royalty from so many different albums of hers still go to charitable causes decades after she has passed away.
She remained a humble person throughout her life.
Vidwan P.S. Narayanaswamy.
To my knowledge, she never handled money on her own and showed least interest in it.
R.K. Sriram Kumar, violin accompanist of MS.
Always kept her ego at bay and nothing touched her, and humility came naturally to her. She did not fake it.
MS remained a student all her life. Her husband ensured that she received advanced training from a titan, Semangudi Srinivasa Iyer. All her life, MS Amma thought of herself as Semangudi's disciple. Her style was honed and strengthened by Semangudi Srinivasa Iyer. MS remained an eternal student and continued to learn from many sources. Vidwan Musiri Subramanya Iyer was one such tutor. When MS Amma was recovering from a severe attack of typhoid, Musiri came every day and sang the song he had taught her, Shyama Shastri's Durusuga, which prays for physical health and strength. Here is a Musiri favorite. Among the galaxy of composers she revered, there was Papanasham Shivan, whose songs found a special place in her heart because she learnt them directly from the composer himself. MS Amma's favourite Shivan Kriti was, of course, his jewel-like Kartikeya Gange. MS became a household name across the country from the 1940s because she played the role of saint poet Meera in the film Meera. Gowri Narayan, writer.
When she sang a Meera bhajan, she kind of became Meera. So this understanding of the mind of the poet. So how did this happen? I think this happened because she was a poet herself and she could understand, she recreated the sounds of the language, meaning of the language. I think that feeling gives that special quality of incandescence, luminousness, the light, a radiance. When you talk about MS, I think it's very difficult to avoid superlatives.
When the film Meera was shot on location in Vrindavan and Dwarka, pilgrims followed Subbulakshmi singing Vrindavan ki Mangal Leela, believing her to be the Rajasthani princess miraculously returned to life. Where and how did a Carnatic musician learn the songs of a Hindi poet? MS was lucky. She had the nationalist Bengali musician and music composer Dilip Kumar Roy to teach her the gems from Meerabai's treasury. MSS was invited to render the invocation on the eve of the inauguration of the 6th Afro-Asian Congress of Ophthalmology held in Madras. She sang an invocation song comprising of 5 languages: Sanskrit, Arabic, Japanese, English and Tamil. MS learned from so many different people, but never, ever did she imitate or clone anyone. Whatever she learned, she made her own, as in Jagadodharana. Renowned violinist R.K. Sriram Kumar.
Whenever she sang, she always kept up the Carnatic identity, the Carnatic soul of every raga, and the perfect intonation. She matched her alapana, she blended her alapana with jaros, with gamakas, with birkas, and it was not an excessive birka structured alapana or an excessive gamaka structured. The balance of both was her hallmark.
Musicologist Dr. Sriram Parshuram.
She was very true to the Kriti. Her integrity to the Padantara, it's called. As she learnt it from her guru, she would sing it exactly the same. So her renditions reflect 2 things. The bhava of the Kriti very well, the form or the structure in which she learned from her guru.
When the Tirupati Devasthanam entrusted MS with propagating the songs of the 15th century Telugu poet Annamacharya, MS dedicated herself to the task from the 1970s with missionary zeal. MS was not without her critics. Some deemed her to be a popular artist merely. Others praised her contemporary.
They all held very comfortable and unique spaces within the domain of Carnatic music. They were actually not in competition. They were not in rivalry. M.S. Amma, she had a style which was immediately pleasing. Brindama, on the other hand, was an epitome of classicism. D.K. Patamal was one of the persons responsible for reviving of Tamil compositions. M.L. Vasantakumari was like a virtuosic singer. Within the 4 of them, I think they covered a very beautiful generation where generally it is felt that Indian traditional art forms don't have space for women in them. These 4 artists, they ruled during their times.
Watching MS learn a new work was a lesson in Shraddha or single-minded focus and Sadhana or internalization. Eminent Carnatic vocalist P.S. Narayanaswamy.
She used to practice kritis on veena to achieve perfection. She was an expert veena player too.
Violinist V.V. Subramaniam.
Before introducing the song to the platform, she will practice a minimum of 100 times and then she will perfect it. She will modulate the meaning of the lyric, which was really wonderful.
She sang hundreds of songs by over 200 composers. Never once did she sing anything with a notebook in hand. Even the Vishnu Sahasranamam was internalized so thoroughly that she could chant the 1,000 names without referring to any paper. How can you find bhava if you look at a paper? She would ask.
Agrahyashashvata Krishno Lohitaksha Pradardana
increasing repertoire of great poets, her constant association with writers and poets and scholars in many languages made MS respond to poetry with deep and abiding sensitivity.
She has perfect diction. She sang in 13 languages. She made sure that she pronounced the words properly, that she split the words properly, also understood the flow of the language.
Gowri Narayan, writer and journalist.
I think she had the heart of a poet, the sensitivity of a poet to respond to the words of a poem in any language. And that is why when she sings, you not only hear the music, you also hear the music of the words, hear the music of the meaning. And this, I think, is quite unique to MS, what we may call the MS aesthetics.
What were her strengths as a classical musician? First of all, she had a superb sense of timing. She fine-tuned every phrase. She had superb editing skills. Always avoid excess, she would say. Best of all, she knew when to stop.
In Manodharma, she kept things very, very simple.
Dr. Sriram Parashuram, veteran vocalist and violinist.
The Manodharma will not be very flashy or showy. It will be in Shruti, Shuddham. The tonal perfection will be there. It won't have that ahamkara, like I am doing this. Look at my mastery of the raga. And it won't be excessive.
Violin accompanist R.K. Sriram Kumar.
She had a wonderful range. She could sing from the Mantrasthai, and she could sing a song in Madhyamashruti which went up to Mutarasthai, Gandhara, range of almost 3.5 octaves. And she was completely comfortable in all those octaves.
Peter Calatin, a voice expert from the UK, knew better when he exclaimed, "She uses her voice like a champion Olympic athlete uses his body." Once, as she explored the heights in the alapana or melodic improvisation in her signature raga, Shankarabharanam, her guru Semanguri cried out from the front row, "Stay up there! Don't make us crash down from the skies! Listen!" Vidushi R. Vedavalli, versatile Carnatic vocalist.
Her Shankarabharanam is very famous. If she doesn't sing Shankarabharanam in a concert, the audience will not accept it. They will shout Shankarabharanam. Even in the Shankarabharanam, she has to go to Pancham, the Tarasthai. She knows how to sing in a performance before the audience.
The kind of music MS made came from the kind of person she was. Unaware of acclaim, she never noticed how overwhelmed friends were when she attended weddings and sang there unasked, unexpected.
She has sung for my marriage, not a concert. Myself and my wife, we went down to do the namaskarams to them immediately after the Mangali Dharanam. Then Amma said, "Inge nille," stand here beside her. She and Radhaka started singing, blessing us with 3 songs in that Kalyana Mandapam. Auditorium was still. Everybody was taken by surprise.
Khatam Maestro Vikku Vinayak Ram, who accompanied MS at the UN concert.
இன்னைக்கு இந்த கடம் பிரசித்தி பெற்றதுன்னா MS Subbulakshmi அம்மாவால தான்.
Ghatam and I became well known because of MS Amma. The title Vikku given to me by MS Amma is more precious to me than my Grammy award.
Grammy award எல்லாம் வாங்கினாலும் பிரசித்தி பெற்றதுன்னா MS Subbulakshmi அம்மாவால தான்.
T.K. Murthy, renowned Mridangam artist and accompanist of MS since 1939.
I believe that I have 20% share of the grace that MS Amma has received.
Some landmarks in her journey would include being the first woman to receive the Sangeet Kalanidhi title in 1968 from the Madras Music Academy, the Magsaysay Award in 1974, and the Bharat Ratna in 1998. In 1966, the Secretary General of the United Nations invited her to give a special concert at the United Nations. This was the first time that any Indian classical musician was performing at the United Nations. Violinist V.V. Subramaniam, who accompanied MS at the UN concert.
It was a perfect timing concert. First time the American audience listening a concert with all the companies. It was thrilling experience. She performed all the trinities and the special English lyric by Rajagopalachari. May the Lord forgive our sins under this uniting roof.
To give up hate and fear and learn to understand. Here under this uniting roof.
The honour that Bharat Ratna and Magsaysay awardee MS Subbulakshmi held most dear was being asked by her spiritual guru, His Holiness Chandrasekharendra Saraswati Swami, the Paramacharya of Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham, to sing during his annual Navratri Puja. When MS Subbulakshmi was invited to sing in the United Nations, she sought the blessings of the sage of Kanchi. The sage of Kanchi composed the song Maitrim Bhajata, the great hymn of peace, as the concluding piece of her UN concert. For the rest of her life, often this divine music was MS's Mangalam piece at the end of her concerts.
युद्धं त्यजत स्पर्धां त्यजत त्यजत परेश्वर क्रममाक्रमणं मैत्रीं भजत अखिल हृजेते श्रेयो भूयात् सकल जनानां श्रेयो भूयात् सकल
In her last moments, wrapped in the shawl gifted to her by the sage of Kanchi, she looked as she always did, tender, gentle, vulnerable.
पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननं पुनरपि मरणं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनं पुनरपि जननी जठरे शयनं भज गोविन्दं गोविन्दं भज मूढमते.
In the national program of features, you just heard a feature titled Divine Maestro. The feature was scripted by Gowri Narayan and narrated by Sunit Tandon. The program was produced by Dominic Thomas. A presentation of the Central English Features Unit. This broadcast came to you from the Delhi station of All India Radio.